What happens when an NFL franchise has to declare for bankruptcy only 2 months before the season begins, which forced the franchise to relocate across season, having all current players opt out of their contracts, and having even below average NFL players reject contracts? Your only option is to go out and sign a bunch of players that no other NFL team want anything to do with. Welcome to the Rejects Madden 19 franchise series. It's been a long time leading up to this point, and after a pretty underwhelming preseason, the fans have seen enough. They have spoken, and as we head into the first ever regular season in team history, it is time to officially reveal your first ever Dublin Shamrock starting depth chart. Let's meet your first ever Dublin Shamrock starting lineup. And oh yeah, so these videos take absolutely forever to make and are almost impossible to bring out on a daily basis. But since I know you guys are ready for that regular season to begin, if we can hit like 2,000 likes within the first couple hours, I'll make sure the regular season opener comes out tomorrow, even if that means I don't sleep and have to eat ramen noodles for the rest of my life. The first ever starting quarterback in Dublin Shamrock history is none other than Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell starting the season at a boosted 64 overall, won the starting job over other quarterbacks such as Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Mark Sanchez, and Pat White. Jamarcus Russell won the fan vote with almost half the total votes at 48%. Second place came Johnny Manziel, who is going to be your backup quarterback for the Dublin Shamrocks. The first ever starting running back in Shamrock history is the surprise of the preseason and your preseason MVP, and that is Dalton Croissant, aka Dalton Croissant, coming in at a 62 overall. He won the fan vote with over 50% at 52%, with Dre Archer coming in second with 23%, Ray Rice with 12%, and Trimmerson with 10%, and freaking Blake Sims with 0.88%. At tight end, we have a shocker, as Tim Tebow is going to be your starting tight end after losing out on the starting quarterback job. We've decided to utilize his skill set, not let him sit on the bench, as he is going to be our starting tight end at a 57 overall. He won overwhelmingly with 69% of the total votes, with Tyrone Swoops at 14%, Wes Saxon at 11%, and Blake Bell at 4%. Now moving on to your starting offensive line for the Dublin Shamrocks. At left tackle, Eric Flowers at a 68 overall. Had no other competition, so there wasn't a vote for him. At left guard, we apparently have Albert Hainsroth at a 64 overall. He did win a pretty tight vote over veteran left guard Alex Boone, but Hainsworth ultimately did win the starting job with 58% of the vote. At center, we have Dylan Day at a boosted 63 overall, one of the closest positional battles, as Dylan Day won with 51% of the vote, opposed to the second place center Daniel Meunier with 48% of the total vote. At right guard, we have Jonathan Martin at a 63 overall, winning with 58% of the total vote over right guard Darrell Green, who had 41%. And at right tackle, once again, he had no other competition, but Greg Robinson at a boosted 68 overall is going to be your Dublin Shamrock starting right tackle. Now on to the wide receiver core, as your number one wide receiver is going to be Corey Coleman with a boosted 73 overall rating. Corey Coleman won the number one job with 45% of the total fan vote. Wide receiver number 2 is going to be 40-year-old Chad Johnson at 63 overall. Didn't have the greatest of preseasons, but the fans apparently like what they saw from Chad Johnson. They think he can be a shade of his former self, and he wins the number 2 wide receiver job with 23% of the total vote. Wide receiver number 3 is Justin Blackman at a 70 overall. Barely missed out on the number 2 job at wide receiver with 21% of the vote. I think he personally had the best preseason out of all the wide receivers, but he is still going to play quite a bit at the wide receiver number 3 position. And a huge drop off in voting after Justin Blackman, but Max McCaffrey is going to be your wide receiver number 4 for the Dublin Shamrocks at a 65 overall. He only got 4% of the vote, but that is enough for him to get a little bit of playing time at wide receiver number 4. Now it's time to meet your Dublin Shamrock starting defense. Beginning at the left end position, we have Vernon Golston at a 64 overall. Won the fan vote pretty convincingly at 61% over backup D-liner at 38%. On to the other side of the defensive line, Daquan Bowers is your starting right end at a 69 overall. Won the fan vote convincingly, getting 85% of the total vote over poor freaking Road Timmy, who only mustered 14% of the total vote. Now, defensive tackle number 1 is going to be the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Oakman. At a 64 overall, won the starting defensive tackle job with 66% of the total fan vote. And your defensive tackle at number 2 is going to be Terrence Cody, also at a 64 overall, who ended up with 23% of the total vote for the defensive tackle position. And moving on to your linebacker core for the Dublin Shamrocks, your first ever starting middle linebacker is going to be Hayes Pouliot at a 69 overall, who did get 39% of the total fan votes. Middle linebacker number 2, it was extremely close, but Mark Herzlich at a 67 overall is going to get some playing time at middle linebacker number 2. Just did miss out on the starting number 1 middle linebacker position job, as he got 35% of the total vote, opposed to Hayes Pouliot 39%. Now on the left side, we have Frank Zombo, the veteran, at a 66 overall, is going to be your starting left outside linebacker, which to me was the surprise out of all the voting polls, as I thought Solomon Elimimian would have won it. But Frank Zombo did end up winning the poll with 62% of the total fan vote. Now out on the right side, we have Daddy Nicholas, that is, at a 68 overall, is going to be your first ever starting right outside linebacker for your Dublin Shamrock defense. He ended up getting 60% of the total fan vote, opposed to Ben Jacobs in second with 39%. Now moving on to your Dublin Shamrock secondary, at free safety we have Fish Smithson, who wins the starting job at a 65 overall, ended up getting 57% of the total fan vote, opposed to Vinny Sinceri, who came in second with 42%. At strong safety, this one was pretty convincing. Prince Charles Iwara at a 62 overall is going to be your starting Dublin Shamrock strong safety. He ended up getting 73% of the total vote, opposed to poor Jeremy Reeves with only 26%. Now moving on to the cornerback position, as we're going to list the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 starting cornerbacks. At number 1, we have D. Milliner at a 70 overall, as he did win out the total votes pretty close with 31%. Now at quarterback number 2, we have another D, this time D. Virgin, at a 67 overall, gonna be your number 2 cornerback for your Dublin Shamrock defense, as he did muster out 26% of the total votes. At cornerback number 3, it's gonna be Michael Jordan. Not this Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan nonetheless, at a 67 overall. Once again, it was extremely close up to this point, as he did receive 24% of the total votes. And your final cornerback on the depth chart, Justin Gilbert, at a 67 overall. Quite the drop off from 3 and 4, but Justin Gilbert did get 11% of the total votes, which does mean he is going to be on the field quite a bit this year. Now, we can't forget special teams, although there was no voting for the special teams. Your starting Dublin Shamrock kicker, apparently he's just Robert now. Robert Aguayo at a 73 overall is your starting kicker. And last but not least, your starting Dublin Shamrock punter, Pat McAfee, at a 68 overall. Now there you have it. Your first ever Dublin Shamrock starting lineup in team history ends up being a 57 overall offense and a 59 overall defense, sitting at a team overall of 56. So hopefully you guys are happy with your Dublin Shamrock starters, as you are the guys who voted for them. Hopefully you guys are ready for the regular season, as this is the team you're going to see lining up next week as we begin the regular season against the Houston Texans. Subscribe if you are new. I'll catch you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. God bless and peace.